His House, a 2020 horror drama, is a story about a refugee couple who makes a harrowing escape from war-torn South Sudan. But then they struggle to adjust to their new life in an English town that has an evil lurking beneath the surface. Starring Sophie Desaru, Wunmi Mosaku, and Matt Smith, this was a film directed by Remi Weekes, by a story written by Felicity Evans and Toby Venables. This was the choice of Lynn Webb as we continue through Bootober. Lynn, how would you like to begin our conversation about His House?
This is a movie that I actually watched blindly.
Okay.
Like maybe a little over a month ago. Just
Okay.
looking for something to watch on Netflix. And happened upon this Wunmi Mosaku's actress that we have both enjoyed.
Absolutely.
And pretty much everything she's done.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw that she was in this film, starring in this film, I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down and watch this. And then just the whole premise of it, because it's a horror film. And like most horror films, like you joked, like it's about a haunted house in a way. It's about a supernatural being in this haunted house that is trying to scare, more or less, this couple that moves into this house. But that's where its trappings in horror or traditional horror really end. Because this movie is first and foremost about the horror of being an immigrant. One, having to leave your home and what that looks like, especially when you're leaving a home where you're escaping violence. And then to find yourself in a world totally unlike your own. Where everything now becomes a horror, because as much as you were trying to escape violence, you are also leaving, to a degree, comfort. You know, the comfort of knowing where you are, knowing where the danger is, knowing how to elude the danger. Here, the danger is everywhere. The danger is just in the unknown. The danger is in the unknown of you. And then on top of that, is there is a guilt that is on this couple is dealing with. And one is a bit of the survivor's guilt of being able to escape, South Sudan, which is where they're leaving, and the violence that is erupting there. There's a survivor's guilt of being able to escape where your whole family, your friends, your family, your whole way of life, your tribes were unable to escape. And then there is how you escaped and the way that they escaped. And we probably might give it away a little bit towards the end of our review, but the less you know going into this film, the better. The way you escape and the weight that you carry from that, and how that now trucks into, African mythology, which is where the supernatural comes into this film, that Remi Weekes pieces together. It is just so smartly done that even though there are some jump scares in this film, even though there is a supernatural at play, just having to walk with the weight on your back, in your presence, in your face, on your shoulders, in your shoes, it's riveting to watch. but it is also very, I don't know. I just felt for the couple. Like I was there with them. I was there in this moment. The movie starts basically with them leaving Sudan. And they're a couple, and they're basically being chased by the guns and violence and gangs all over, and people are trying to squeeze themselves onto this one bus that is going to make it away. And these are people that are going to be arriving in England illegally. But they're trying to squeeze themselves onto a bus so that they can make it to the shore so that they can perhaps get on a boat that they just hope will make it across the seas to get them to England.
Right.
And they maneuver their way onto the bus. They maneuver their way onto the boat. The seas are it's of course it's a storm at sea. It's basically inflatable raft that is built for maybe 7 people. There's about 20, 30 people on this boat. So you can imagine what happens is that tries to make it over to England. Eventually, they somehow make it to asylum in England. And while they are in asylum, they are put into a home. That as long as they do not leave the home, do not really make any friends, do not even pretty much do anything to the house. But as long as that is where they begin their day and end their day, they can stay in that home. That will be their home while they are in England, while they're waiting to see whether or not they will be able to be granted some type of citizenship.
Right.
So it's while they're in asylum, and this is a home,
and they have to stay in there.
They have to stay in that home. They can't move any other place
to the citizenship.
Right. And and this is a home that is like it's basically a refugee house. It's basically in a housing project in England, where there are it's disgusting. It wasn't cleaned out before they got there. There's rotting food all over the place. The cabinets are falling off. The door literally comes off the hinges as they are walking into. They're being walked in and presented with the house by their, I guess, social worker of a sort, played by Matt Smith, of Doctor Who fame, and The Crown fame, and
House of the Dragon,
and But you have to imagine, you're not really you're not given a glimpse of what home was in Sudan, but you have to imagine, as dilapidated as this 2-story home is, it is possibly likely better than where they were. If for no other reason that there are not guns going off in the middle of the night. There are not people being pulled out of their house and killed or hacked to death, as you learn later in the film. It happened to some of their family members. And in trying to assimilate here in this world in England, there is definitely a tension between the couple that you sense. There, you sense that they have a tension, that, as I mentioned, because of the survivor's guilt of how they came to this circumstance, as well as you hearing allusions as to how they got there, because they lost their daughter along the way. Their daughter was lost at sea as they made their way to England. And there is, you get a sense of guilt on their part, and you're wondering, who wants to bury their daughter? You never want to bury your children. But then you're wondering, there seems to be some question as to whether or not they did enough to save their child. And then it appears that their child spirit is haunting them in the house, which has now got them questioning whether or not, the child is actually even dead. The wife, Rael, tells her husband, Bol, about this story that her grandmother told her about an abbot that would sometimes take hold in a house to haunt a couple, and if she's feeling like an abbot is now in their home in the spirit of their daughter. And we could talk a little bit more about the story. Let Vincent share his lights on it. But it is an affecting story dealing with them just having to deal with this, being this fish out of water, more or less. There's a scene. He used to work at a bank, but now he just has to basically find work, But there's a scene where while he is out trying to find work, she has to make her way to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been drawn a map of how to make her way through their housing project to the doctor whose office is supposed to be right on the outside of the project, right? But there's these driveways and alleyways that you're supposed to turn right, boom, boom, boom. And as she makes her way, she seemingly gets turned around. That may be one of the most scariest moments in this film, because you're unsettled for what will happen to her, because she does not speak good English. She speaks English, but she has some trouble with the language. And in this project where she lives, where they're supposed to be housed refugees, it's seemingly they are the only refugees there right now. So it is only basically people who cannot afford any better living in this project. And there are those who are either mocking them. There are you see these three young boys who mock her, make fun of her, and do their best to try and get her lost in this situation. She seems to turn down one aisle to alleyway to then just come upon another alleyway. There are barking dogs that she can't see, but she just hears, and she don't know because they may be right around that corner, and it's very trepidatious. And all the while, Umi Masaka wears this burden on her face, because as burdened as she is with the guilt, and probably as little unnerved as she is in this moment, and as horrified as we are, the viewer, for her, there's also a bit of weariness in her face, because she realizes all of this ain't nothing compared to where I came from. And there are moments where she is actually looking out the window, and she's looking at the people just in her in the project, and she's like, look at them, they're just so bored, because they don't realize what they have. They don't realize how, they don't know the other side. She and her husband Bol, they know the other side, and they are living with it every day, every moment, and that is the horror that this film really punches home on. All the supernatural stuff is there. That's just to get you in the building. That is the horror that this film really trucks in, and it is fantastically filmed by Joe Williams, is the cinematographer. There is not. It's pitch perfect film. And I knew when I saw it about a month ago, I said, oh, we have to watch this for Bootober. This is just excellent craftsmanship.
I wanted to like this more than I ended up liking.
Wow.
I know. I think this is a film that looks great. I'll start with where you and I both agree. I think the film looks great.
Mm-hmm.
I think because neither of us are from England, I don't know how much the film is doing this and how much of it is we're just not familiar with England. But I think the film does a wonderful job framing this English village as alien.
Okay.
As you said, I agree with you. My favorite scene in the film is when Remi Weekes' character gets turned around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like a maze. And it's one of these moments in the film that frankly I wanted more of, where you're not quite sure if something supernatural is going on or if this is just the alien nature of being in this environment.
Okay.
As a refugee, as someone looking for citizenship and asylum. I think I think where this film underwhelmed me was in how I didn't get the sense that I knew exactly what the film was going for. I think the sentiment that they are seeking asylum and now they've moved into this house, and it's a bit of a red herring where early on the character played by Matt Smith says usually you all refugees don't get houses this big,
mm-hmm. or all to themselves,
or all to themselves. It's usually more people, and then they say, well, why did we get it? And then he kind of ominously says, well, I guess you won the lottery, so that you think that there's going to be an issue with the house,
mm-hmm.
just the house itself and this location. And that's not the issue at all. I think, as you said, you think that maybe the conflict is going to be they're trying to fit into this new world. And while Remi Weekes' character pretty much stays in the house, her husband's character, and let me... Bull, played by Sophie DeRusso, actually kind of makes an effort to become part of this community, like
assimilate,
assimilate. You know, there's this great scene where he buys clothes exactly like the ad. There's a wonderful moment where he goes to a local pub
mm-hmm.
and starts singing a soccer fight song with everyone in the pub. But having watched the film from the beginning to the end, everyone in the town, as far as he is concerned, is actually pretty welcoming. Like everyone actually, like at one point, someone invites him to the church and gives him a basket. You know, like I said, there he's welcomed into the pub, mm-hmm. as far as we know. This one scene, there's a moment, speaking of a red herring, where their neighbor is sort of creepy, and says, "I bet you won't make it a month." But then that line of the plot never goes anywhere, mm-hmm. like you
mm-hmm.
assume. And even Matt Smith is pretty much straight ahead.
He's a straightforward person,
straightforward character. The whole film. So that then, okay, so we've got this haunted house plot, and we know the haunted house, the haunting doesn't come from the location,
right?
So then, as it goes on, you realize, okay, well, this is a case of what happened in the Sudan has followed them, mm-hmm. and this is their history, and this is everything that happened, and you think that it's the trauma of the experience and everything that goes with that, and now that's the conflict, and it is.
Yes.
But what you find out 20 minutes before the film is over, as you said, in the journey, they've lost their daughter. So that the film sort of sets up that part of this haunting is what's going on with the daughter. It's almost like a version of what happens in Beloved,
mm-hmm.
where you had this harrowing, traumatic experience in the past, and now it's haunting you.
Right.
But then you find out these details about what actually happens with their daughter 20 minutes before the film goes off that completely recontextualizes the film.
Everything you've seen.
And everything you've seen. But for me, it was too little too late. Like I almost wish that the film was cut in a way that the last 20 minutes that was the flashback actually had started the film, so that throughout the whole film, we know exactly what this couple had to do to get out. Because now that complicates it. Now you're trying to figure out, because without that, it was too linear for me, frankly. Like there was no complication. As you said, we both love
Umi Asaka.
I think she elevates this material,
yes.
but I don't think she is nearly as good as she can be. You know, and you think about something like Lovecraft Country, which to me is when both of us said, oh, well, she's the one right there. Likewise, I don't think Matt Smith is doing nearly as much as he could in this film. And I do at an hour, a little under an hour and a half. It's a very short film.
Yes, it's only about an hour and a half, yeah.
It just wasn't enough there for me.
Okay.
To kind of be invested. Again, until you get to this moment towards the end where suddenly it complicates everything. And then it's, again, that's too little too late. The point that the scene that we both like the best is, as you mentioned, as she's lost in this maze and she is mocked by these three British boys. But I think it's worth pointing out that these are Black British boys. So then you have this really complicated kind of moment of what does racial identity mean, and how does this work with, your ethnicity and your nationality, and how does this work together? But it's never explored. Like, it's never really unpacked in any sort of way. So that I have to say, I came away from this film wanting more than I got.
Yeah,
and frankly, a little underwhelmed with what was on the screen. And for me, I mentioned Beloved. It committed the cardinal sin for me, that I'm watching it and it reminded me of better films. So besides Beloved, frankly, my favorite, everyone knows I'm not a horror person, but my favorite horror film of all time is Poltergeist.
Okay.
And it reminded me of Poltergeist, but then it suffers in the comparison. So that, again, I wanted to, like, I was right there, but when it went off, I really was ultimately underwhelmed with what I got.
I don't know, man. To see, okay. I mean, your experience is your experience. I was there, man. It does start. I guess it's not a flash. It's not seen as a flashback when it starts.
Well, you get a little flashback, but you don't get the most important part of the flashback.
But that's the idea. Is not to get that. You don't want that in the beginning. They're trying to tease you. He's trying to set you up, trying to just get you set up so that you are feeling for this couple.
But he's so much more complicated.
No, he is complicated.
Once but the whole deal.
Well, to be fair, you said it's like 20 minutes, and it is a short film. I think it might be a little bit closer to about the last 40 minutes.
No, it's 20 because I looked.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It worked for me.
Okay.
That's all I can say, is that it worked for me when you do find out the twist. It worked for me because I was up on my feet, because at that point there's a certain person in this film that I'm like, oh, dog, like you was just foul. You just all the way foul.
Right. But your judgment of him is based on this level of safety and privilege that you have. Like, we have the safety and privilege to judge his actions. But you have to acknowledge that in that situation, this level of desperation that everyone has. You said, like, the guns are firing, and you know, I think he is trying to protect his family. And he did, you know, he kind of...
Yeah. Okay, we're couching it a little bit because he's trying to protect his family, but he also pulls a huge get over. He pulls a huge get over.
Again, but now this makes this character someone that, I'm going to keep using the word complicate, like you have these very complicated feelings now about both of them.
Well, yeah, you do.
And again,
you do. And now you understand that it's not just survivor's guilt that is on them. It's guilt of another color.
But again,
of another weight.
How do you judge someone trying to survive? Like, obviously we can. Obviously we don't condone the actions that they made. Yeah, but, you know.
No, you don't.
You hope you would never do something like that. You hope that you wouldn't.
No, you know what? No, I'm not. I'm sorry. It's not that I hope I would never do that. I would never do that. The reason, and I think the reason. Okay, do we want to spoil it?
Yeah, I guess we should. Okay, so spoiler.
Spoiler alert. The daughter that they lose is not their daughter. It is actually just a young girl who, when they're trying to make their way onto the bus.
Right. The bus is only taking children and families with children.
And
they are a couple that does not have a child.
Right. And they're not going to take them on. There's guns firing.
Right.
There's a young girl that is standing there, you know, seemingly on her own. And Ball grabs her and says, it's a child. And then they let him and his wife and the girl on the bus. When they are on the bus, the girl is calling for her mother, who is now outside the window. So you now realize, oh, this is not their child.
Right. They've taken someone's child. They have
taken someone's child. And this mother is now racing after the bus. And it's lost in this cloud of smoke. And you're left to possibly believe that under a hail of bullets. This child that, you know, they use to get on the bus is the child that they lose at sea.
All right. So that's the end of the spoiler. People were saying, all right, let's wait. All right, that's the end of the spoiler, y'all.
All right.
So that complicates it to me.
That complicates it like a mug. But that is something that I can definitively say I would never do.
Okay.
Even under survival, I am not doing that.
I've never been desperate, so I'm not going to say what I wouldn't do if I was desperate enough. But my overall point is, I think if that moment is the foundation of this film, so much of what comes after, you get this nuance, you get this level of again complication that, frankly, I was not invested enough to circle back around and watch it again.
Okay.
And a lot of that is because, again, I think there's a fair amount of red herrings.
And I appreciated them. I think Matt Smith is actually, you know, maybe this is just me. I think he is purposefully cast because Matt Smith does have a little bit of a weird look about him.
Absolutely, 100%.
And the fact that Dylan over there is like, God, yes. But the fact, like, just like you said, that he pretty much plays it straight in this movie,
Right.
It gets you because you're just waiting for the other beat with him.
Right.
And it never comes.
Right.
And I think that's one of those red herrings. He's setting up. You think you know where this is going. You think it's going to be this. You think it's going to be that. No, it's all about the horror within themselves more so than anything else. I love this movie.
Yeah, I was underwhelmed. I was underwhelmed, and I wanted to be whelmed.
Okay.
So,
well, before you ask,
but the real question is, of course, would you recommend this film?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I would recommend this wholeheartedly that people watch His House.
I think you can skip it.
Wow. Really, Vincent?
I think you can skip it. I do. I think there are better haunted house movies. I think there are better.
Are there better movies? Sure.
Yeah.
But that's now you're judging it against other movies.
Well, look, sure. On its own, I don't think it's enough there. I don't think it's enough there.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
and again, it frustrates me. I think what frustrates me is the aspect of the story that I think would have made it pop and made it kind of rise or sort of differentiate itself from the other haunted house films. Again, by the time you learn this detail, I just was not invested. I just was not invested.
Okay.
So I would say skip it.
All right. Well,
all right.
Vincent says you should skip His House.
And Lynn says you should watch it.
I say you should. There you go. So
when in doubt, follow the recommendation of the person that says watch it.
Thank you.
I mean, that's what I always say. Like, I always think you should, like, you know, if it's a split decision, I think the split decision should always go to the movie.
There you go.